One of the most exciting experiences for me as a music lover has been to see a band that I've never even heard before play live and be so totally blown away as to become instantly obsessed with them. It's not something I've experienced often, but it is particularly cool when it happens. And never before or since have I felt like I did when I discovered a band from New York City by the name of White Zombie. It was September of 1992, and I was absolutely pumped to see Pantera, who were on tour supporting their brand new album Vulgar Display of Power. The lineup also included Trouble, who I really liked, and the second opener, a band I'd never even heard of named Zombie something. The show was held at the Montreal Spectrum, which was a rather small venue with a capacity of only 1,200 people. And that sounds crazy when you think that if White Zombie were to regroup and go on tour with the current incarnation of Pantera, they'd probably be selling out arenas worldwide. But back then, Pantera were just starting to break out, and White Zombie were a relatively unknown band, still touring in a van after the release of their major label debut. Of course, it wouldn't be long before that would change in a very big way, but for the time being, not that many people knew who they were. When the band took the stage, they just completely blew my mind. They had such a unique look, vibe, and sound that had me absolutely mesmerized before they even finished the first song. The singer looked unreal and was all over the stage. The drummer was tight but with a great groove, and the same went for the bass player, who was also this exceptionally cool looking girl, and the guitar player. That dude played some of the most awesome and most original riffs I'd ever heard in my life. Now, I went from not knowing who they were to them being my favorite band in under 30 minutes. The first thing I did the very next morning was to go out and buy their album. And for the next few years, I think not a day went by that I didn't listen to it. I even bought this t-shirt that I'm wearing shortly after, and it's still one of my favorite designs. I should probably get a new one that I can actually wear because this one's obviously a relic now. White Zombie guitarist Jay Younger is not a name I hear often these days, and that's so unfortunate because he was one of the more influential players of the 90s, even if he only appeared on 2 albums. And he was definitely one of the coolest players along with guys like Zach and Dimebag. As a guitar player, there's a lot one can learn from Jay. Timing, groove, feel, playing in the pocket, being a team player, stage presence, and using embellishments, creative thinking, and different fingerings to add a special twist to your riffs. So in this video, I want to take a look at the main riff from each of the album's 11 songs. Some of these were written by Jay, and others were written by bassist Sean Yseult, who is, in my opinion, severely underappreciated as a bassist, composer, arranger, and persona. Check out her book, I'm in the Band, if you can get a copy of it. It's a great read and a unique window into a very special period in music history. I know there are multiple riffs in each track that are worth a closer look, but I don't want to be overindulgent, so for the sake of keeping the video to a reasonable length, I'll just stick to the main riffs. Oh, and because Jay used the Charvel Model 6 on pretty much the entire record, I'm gonna use my Charvel Model 1 for this entire video. Here we go. The riff that gets the album started is also the most straightforward one of the bunch and is made up of just 2 notes a minor third apart, E and G. What makes it so impactful is the tight and syncopated groove, which also has a very distinct and highly infectious bounce. The second half of this song is very much its own thing, kind of like what Megadeth did with Holy War's The Punishment Do. This one has just 2 parts, an exceptionally cool riff and a breakdown that uses just a low E. So let's look at the riff. This is still in E minor, but it uses some cool chromaticism to really make it pop. It ends up sounding like a blend between Phrygian and Locrian. It's dark and full of tension, but it also seriously swings. Obviously, when you have a song this good, you want it up front as much as possible. So it's no surprise that Thunder Kiss 65 would be the second song of the album. Now this riff is deceptively simple because the open string rhythm has to be played with very precise picking and just the right amount of palm muting to make it sound tight yet resonant. The tail with the descending major thirds is brilliant because of that chromatic flat 5 that sounds dark in how it plays off the E, but it makes for a second consecutive major third against the F sharp that precedes it briefly, making for that really cool contrast. And to give you an idea of just how powerful this song is, I saw Rob Zombie live just recently, and they played a great set with huge songs like Dragula, House of a Thousand Corpses, and Living Dead Girl. But the pop of the night, by far, was when guitarist Riggs started to play the Thunder Kiss riff. The next one was the album's second single, and it's got the bounciest riff of the entire record. It was written by bassist Sean Yseult, and it's essentially based on the minor blues scale. There are two versions of the riff. One is the bass line, which serves as the intro and verse. Now this is played in E. And the other one, played in A, is a little more elaborate and acts as the chorus riff. You'll notice that it has a really particular groove, and that's because it's in 6/4 time, which isn't something you hear too often in heavy music. But it really swings, and it's all kinds of awesome. Soul Crusher is another one of Sean's riffs. It's in 7/4 time, and after 4 repeats, they throw in a measure of 3 short stabs in 3/4 time. It's super sinister sounding because it's in D minor, but they're using some pretty wacky chromaticism, so you get these multiple half steps that, like in the riff from Psychoholic Slag, make it sound like a mix between Phrygian and Locrian. Now this one has the added benefit of having a deliberate rhythm played in an odd time signature.
Drop it, Buster.
This next one is just one pedal point riff after another. They're in E, then they're in A, then they're back in E, then they go into F. There's chromatics everywhere, and seriously, I don't even know how they came up with this stuff. Made up of just 3 notes and just 1 bar in length, this is probably the most ordinary sounding riff on the album. I think this one is a great example of applying the KISS principle to songwriting. KISS as in keep it simple, stupid. By keeping it simple and repetitive over a punchy and groovy drum beat, the riff becomes hypnotic, especially with the overdubbed single notes an octave higher that are highlighting the tail. And that's taken even further when the chorus comes in with those dreamy, spacey, arpeggiated notes. Smart songwriting and arranging like this is what made people love this band so much. I love a good power chord riff, and that's because to me, that's the sound of rock in its purest form, period. Think of Iron Man, I Love Rock and Roll, Blitzkrieg Bop, Smells Like Teen Spirit, Seven Nation Army, and I'm sure you'll see what I mean. The riff from I Am Legend blends Black Sabbath heaviness with the syncopated percussiveness of thrash metal, and the result is legendary. This riff is badass and deceptively simple. Now I say this because when I was preparing for this video, going over all of these riffs one by one, and I got to this song, I said to myself, oh yeah, this one's just a simple rhythm around here on the neck, and then I played it, and it sounded like absolute dog shit. Sloppy and nowhere near in the pocket. So if you want to nail this one, you gotta lock in with the snare drum, and you have to be very mindful of the micro rests and where to palm mute versus where to let notes ring clearly. Now, the tempo is really fast and everything is going by quickly, so if you try to think about what your hands are doing, you'll lose the beat and it'll fall apart on you real quick. Grindhouse A Go-Go has a killer groove, especially with that pretty slick stop time thing they do. Check this out. This one sounded so massive live, so I recommend you look up the clip of them playing it in 1993. And fun fact, they used to start it with this. Which ended up becoming the intro to Grease Paint and Monkey Brains on their Astro Creep album. I love how this next song starts with a sample from an original series Star Trek episode featuring Spock.
One. We are one. One is the beginning.
Now, something about Leonard Nimoy's voice, inflection, and pace just fits so perfectly with the feel of this album. There's a really cool intro made up of ringing power chords that sets up the song, and then leads up to the main riff with an octave jump that is very reminiscent of Jimi Hendrix's Crosstown Traffic. Absolutely wonderful stuff.
2, 1.
So the riff has such a tremendous groove, it delves into funk metal territory. And there are two different sections. The first features a driving rhythm with a mix of single note octave jumps, double stops, and an accented power chord. And then the second has more of a broken rhythm with an ascending pattern based on the minor blues scale. So this keeps things interesting and raises the tension before ending on a staccato line as a turnaround to go back to a driving rhythm for the verse. It's a very clever arrangement and it sounds insanely good. A riff like this can be pretty challenging as it requires very tight playing while keeping a loose and relaxed feel. This is something White Zombie were particularly good at, and you could really get a sense of it watching them play this stuff live. The album's closer brings us back into Black Sabbath territory with the almost doom metal riff of Warp Asylum, which by the way is such a great song title. I don't have a clue what it means or what the song is about, but just like all things White Zombie, it just sounds cool. So this is just a straightforward 2-bar pedal point riff in E that ends with an accented A power chord and a single G note with a slight bend for a little extra evil. It's actually a little reminiscent of Soundgarden's Loud Love, like... only it's darker and more brooding. For me, there is just something special about ending an album on a song that has this kind of hypnotic, otherworldly vibe. It leaves me feeling trapped in the album's world with no real desire to escape. White Zombie sounded, looked, and felt like nothing else. They not only had their own unique sound that came from a mix of rock, thrash metal, punk, hip-hop, funk, and more, but they also created an entire White Zombie world that was a blend of carnival culture, horror films, TV, B-movies, comic books, street culture, and their own creative fantasies. Their major label debut contains some incredibly good music and fantastic guitar playing, and it's also a great example of artistic vision, integrity, creativity, and especially how to make rock music fun, exciting, and deeply enthralling.